Hello. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, family. We have arrived at the final day of our Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action for 2026. Amazing that we have come this far. We celebrated 10 years, a decade of struggle of Black Lives Matter at School here in Seattle. And nationally, this is the ninth year. So we'll get to celebrate a decade of this movement nationally next year. But all week we've been grounded in our guiding themes of loving engagement and globalism, international struggle and the international African diaspora, and the ideas that our struggles, our joys, our visions for liberation are all deeply connected across borders, across histories, across identities and movements. And today we close with the theme that sits at the heart of everything that we've been building towards, being unapologetically black, right? And that means centering black life, black history, black brilliance, black resistance without asking permission or making apology for it. And to me, it really means being able to teach the truth about our history, loving our people out loud, and naming black liberation at a time when open racism and attacks on black history and education have really intensified. I mean, we can we can look at the Trump administration pulling down the slavery exhibit in Philadelphia at George Washington's house and just trying to erase the ancestors' names whose labor built the economy of this country. We can look at Trump sending out racist videos uh, just last night, right? We can look at the fact that now in the United States, almost half of all students go to a school where their teacher is mandated to lie to them about race and gender and sexuality, to declare that there is not systemic racism, that this country wasn't founded on systemic racism. How can you talk about slavery without talking about systemic racism? That wasn't racist, right? This is the reality that they are trying to instill in our nation's youth, and that's why Black Lives Matter at School has been fighting for 10 years in this struggle for a different vision of public education. So Black Lives Matter at School rejects that racism and demands that our schools teach solidarity, which brings me to our guest today. It's an honor to be in conversation with Brian Jones, an educator and writer and thinker and actor, uh, and someone who's just helped so many of us better understand the Black freedom struggle, not as a static list of facts to memorize, but as a living tradition of struggle that can guide us. And Brian is a contributor to the book that Denisha Jones and I co-edited called Black Lives Matter at School, and he has a brilliant chapter in there that I'm hoping that you could start off talking about. So welcome, Brian.
Welcome. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you for that generous introduction. And yeah, to everything you just said, it's really amazing to look back and see how, other parts of the Black Lives Matter movement have struggled to maintain organizational coherence. But here in the realm of education, this is one of the most enduring ways that the Black Lives Matter movement has persisted,
Hmm.
and one of the most important places for it to be rooted and to endure in our schools. Um, Thinking about the fact that this is also 100 years of Black History Month, which started as Negro History Week, I
Yes.
can't help but think that it's really useful for us to remember how the whole thing got started, because
Yes.
it was not official, it was not endorsed, it was not permitted in most places. It had to be fugitive. And so Carter G. Woodson, communicating with networks of educators all over the country, people who in some cases could lose their jobs if they were teaching Black history, but they did it anyway.
That's great.
So this is a good moment for us to remember the grassroots nature of where we get Black History Month from anyway. And the fact that despite all of the bans, despite all of the authoritarianism, that there was never anybody who was going to come and save us from all of this, that we were going to have to save ourselves.
That's
So
right.
everything you just talked about the principles that have guided this week, unapologetic blackness, loving engagement, thinking globally and international. I just think I see all of that in the origin story of Black History Month, and even down to the materials that Carter G. Woodson is sending out to teachers to help them do this work, in what started as Negro History Week and blossomed to Black History Month, but it included global perspectives. Um, they were teaching and talking about the Haitian Revolution all throughout the 20th century, in among Black educators, materials about teaching about Toussaint Louverture and that incredible revolution circulated. So this is we have a legacy here, and resources from the past to draw strength from and to think with as we're trying to figure out how to move through what is a very challenging time for so many educators, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for grounding us in the context of this movement. It is amazing to look at the contribution that students and educators and parents have made to the Black Lives Matter movement. When you look at what policy victories we achieved from the 2020 uprising, it's really telling that in almost no cities did we defund the police. Some places maybe briefly, but it was reinstated and often increased, right? Um, it was incredible to see the national conversation change around the country in terms of ideas about abolishing the police and replacing them by flooding communities with the resources they need to thrive was a beautiful discussion. But it didn't really happen anywhere. But the place that policy victories were achieved was in the realm of education, where in Seattle we won Black Studies program because of the uprising, and my son is taking classes around that now, right? Um, and we also removed the police from schools in Seattle. We abolished the police in schools, and um, dozens of other school districts did as well. And so I'm really glad that you started by talking about how the BLM movement has really endured in the realm of education, and that's not a mistake because we've been organizing struggles in education and connecting it with anti-racism for decades. So we have a base to launch this movement, and it's really been cool to see. And then when you went into the history of like the Fugitive Project that Carter G. Woodson and others launched with Negro History Week, it really, to me, lays out the lineage that we are in. And I learned recently from Jarvis Givens, his new book, I'll Make Me a World, on the 100-year anniversary of Black History Month, talks about another educator in Washington, D.C., where I started teaching. And I didn't know about her then. I wish I had, but a woman named Mary Church Terrell established Frederick Douglass Day in Washington, D.C. public schools. Carter G. Woodson actually decided to make Black Negro History Week in February because there was already a day for Frederick Douglass Day that month, right? And then it triggered something in my mind because it made me realize this parallel that we had Black Lives Matter at School Day in Seattle back
Mhm.
in 2016 that we launched in response to a white supremacist making a bomb threat at an elementary school here. And then the teachers in Philadelphia saw what we had done and expanded our day of action to a week of action uh, later that school year, right? And it was so cool to see that parallel of a day of action expanding to a week of action, expanding to, movements. And I just Really love the way our movement now is echoing some of that history. So I,
100%.
yeah. So you have a new book out, Brian, and I just wanted you to introduce that book. Brilliant work. Black history is for everyone and so needed right now because as I see the streets in Minneapolis being flooded with ICE agents, um, and looking like rising fascism across this country, I know that the Black freedom struggle has a lot to say about how to fight fascism and authoritarianism, and your book is right on time.
Well, thank you. And I really appreciated the conversation that we got to have. And I appreciated that we got to have that conversation with teachers from all over the country, including teachers who are teaching under the bans, and who are, I've drawn so much strength from being in their presence and from just their example of keeping on, keeping on.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, this book is my attempt to share with a broader audience the kinds of conversations and workshops and seminars and curriculum resources that my colleagues and I have been cooking up in at the Schomburg Center, at Voices of a People's History of the United States, in the New York City Civil Rights History Project. The through line in all of these projects was trying to help people use primary sources from Black history, freedom struggles in their classrooms. And so I'm just kind of taking you, the reader, on a journey of my process of thinking through the biggest themes that I was teaching and working through over the past few years, which are, I mean, it's just four exploratory essays, if you will: race, nation, revolution, and education. And a big part of it for me is coming to terms with Black education history, the difference between the way my parents came up in the world and I came up in the world, and learning to think about and appreciate, uh, in a different way, the history of Black educational activism in particular is to me a kind of through line.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad people will get a chance to see the full interview. Um, and so we'll play that for folks as well. Before we get to that, I just want to um, end by saying it's amazing that we've made it this far. And, when we learn the struggles in your book, whether it's the Black Panther Party that started in New York, in Harlem, before the Black Panther Party of Oakland, or we learn about the Haitian Revolution, um, lessons that they don't want our youth to learn because they're guides to creating a more just society and uprooting institutional racism. I'm just so inspired by the teachers all over the country who are defying book bans, who are defying curriculum censorship, who are defying uncritical race theory and teaching the truth about white supremacy in this country. And I hope that we will expand this Black Lives Matter at School movement in the years to come, and that it will be part of tearing down the truth crime laws all across the country that are banning honest history and
Mm-hmm.
replacing it with Black studies, ethnic studies, so every child gets to learn about their culture and the contributions of their people. So, thank you for being part of this struggle. And thanks to everyone out there in the movement. We got big victories in the years to come waiting for us if we're ready to fight for it. So, uh, thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you, all the organizers of Black Lives Matter at School and the Week of Action. So important.
Right on.